I think I want to start with the farcically facially haired, mustachioed meanies of this film. It seemed that there was a bit of a contest going on. You with your Hitler hair. You had Steve with his circa 1986 porno tash, and well, Harry Dean Stanton looking like he'd been plugged into an electrical circuit. I guess that's au naturel for Harry, right?
Yeah, that's how that's how Harry shows up to work. Yeah, just like that. On our films, he's like, I get to wear my own clothes, and
you can take this one.
This one's better. Yeah. Yeah, that's how Harry came to work, just disheveled and crazy, and that's how he's come to work in our other films too. Yeah. And the mustache thing was definitely there was a different prop thing going on there. Hank, his mustache is fake, but we had to have him have a mustache.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
You knew?
I didn't know.
Yeah.
And how was it that Harry came to work on the film, and is he as grouchy as his character on set?
Yeah, well, this is the third film that Harry's been in of mine, and the first two was just like, very quick little mini cameo type things, but this was the first time that I was like giving him like a chunk of dialogue. And I was at a Christmas party Christmas Eve party with Harry one night, and I was trying to cheer this guy up one day, and I started going on some weird thing about the table theory, kind of sort of what Harry's speech was about. Logan went back and had a conversation with Harry about it. Then all of a sudden, this thing kind of got around like this circle of guys, and then this one fella, Crazy George, started going around going, "Hey, I got this table theory thing," and then Logan had to point out, I was like, "No, you don't. That was Brian's or whatever." So on this Christmas Eve, Harry starts bringing all this stuff up to me, and I'm like, not really sure what he's talking about at first, and then I'm like, kind of like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. And then he's like, "Well, why don't you put some of that stuff in your movies or whatever?" So I was like, okay. So I kind of wrote him that speech and then presented it to him, and he just was like, we did a table read, and he just like hated the movie. He was like, "I don't understand what anybody's fucking saying in this movie. They're just every word is just, they're just full of shit." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, Harry, but except for you kind of have this passage. You're kind of the other guy who's the different voice." And he's like, "I don't know. I don't know the next thing that's coming out of my mouth. I don't know if I'm gonna do it or not. I'm old. I like to watch game shows." And then like a couple weeks later, he said he'd do it. So that's the Harry story.
So this movie is predominantly set around Boyle's restaurant, and it's a higher budget thing than the things that you've done in the past, but I imagine still at a level where, in order to write the script, did you have the restaurant location already set?
Yeah, well, Joey Capone, who plays Steve Boyle, he and I co-wrote the film. And the reason that this film became a restaurant family movie is because Joey was working at a restaurant, and they told him that we could shoot there for free. So I was like, okay, cool, let's make a restaurant movie. Brett and James Duvall were working with Ilana Krause, who plays the mother in here, and they were like coming to me saying, "Oh, there's this woman, she has this house, and she wants to produce films, she's got some money." So I'm like, "Great, cool." So I went over and I met her, and I pitched her about 5 different ideas, Carlos being one of them. And she's like, "Oh, I really like Carlos. When can I read that?" And I just looked her dead in the eye and I go, "In 1 week." And we hadn't written a word of it yet. So we wrote the damn thing in 6 days and turned it in, and then they agreed to make it.
And Robert, shooting something like this when the characters are so exaggerated, is there a danger that with your camera, when you're doing comedy like this, that the camera can accentuate that as well, so it pushes it too far in one direction?
Yes, there is a danger. But no, we just, we wanted it a little cartoony and a little stylized, but the actors are all pretty real with what they do. Even when they're screaming, they're real. So we try to keep it simple, a little Royal Tenenbaums-ish, a little bit of Coen Brothers-y wide-angle lenses, to make it a little bit unreal with the way it looked, a little cartoonish. But we didn't do anything too crazy with the camera to make it like too zany, I guess. So the camera's still for the most part. I mean, it's just a balance, I think. But that was kind of the idea. Kind of go heavily stylized on the look, make it look like a really bigger budget film, but have these kind of raw, wild performances within the frame.
Movie looks good, Robert. Thank you.
Yes, it does.
I think it's worth mentioning the lens package. Those like 70s style lenses.
These lenses might have been World War II lenses, we're not sure. Or using like, you know, a newer red camera with some really old film lenses from probably the 70s or 60s. And that kind of gives it a little bit of a dirty, gritty look, I think, with the grain.
And Brett, your character, Victor Smiles, he's, you know, he's a crazy character, but within this bunch of, he's probably the least crazy, I guess. So how do you go about kind of picking the right size for this character and playing it at a very different wavelength to everyone else around you? And did you have any particular inspiration for the character?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, you know, I was out of town in Los Angeles. I left town for a couple months, and Brian and Joey called me. I was in Hawaii, and they said, "Okay, we figured it out. It's called, you know, Carlos Spills the Beans." He's like, "Here's the deal." And I was like, slow down, slow down. I said, "Oh, you
told us that it was called Carlos.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, they were telling me the story, and then anyway. But they told me that this guy's like the coolest, the nicest guy in the world. Like he's like you, or he's the nicest guy in the world. He's the coolest, nicest guy. And I was like, well, I kept trying to ask Brian and I stopped him because then all of a sudden it happened so fast. We got the funding, we started making the movie, and I was like, well, how cool is this guy? Or how nice? I just grabbing Joey and grabbing Brian and trying to figure it out. And then I went to a Denny's restaurant, and if you know what a Denny's is, you know, and I basically saw this this waiter who was like the cool guy at Denny's, you know. And I was like, wow, everybody thought he was really cool, but I think if he left Denny's, he wasn't that cool. But in that, he was like the king of Denny's, you know. And so I sort of saw him, you know, and I was like, wow. And so that's sort of how I tried to figure it out, I guess. Does that make any sense? I have no idea.
And Logan producing the movie along with Brett.
I didn't produce this.
Oh, you didn't produce
I
it?
didn't? No, I
I
produced
was
the last
before.
few nights, but I am in it.
You are in it?
Yeah.
Okay. Looking quite different as well. Different facial hair for this one.
Yeah, yeah.
Less cunty.
I joined ZZ Top since then. Yep. Basically, Brian called me and goes, yeah, I got a part for you I want you to play. It's called Cunt Ass. I'm like, I'm in. And that was it.
Oh, he did it with a plug, sir. Did it with a plug. So, when Carlos spills the beans, watching it again tonight for the third time, I had just realised how great that shot is, where the water spills over and it goes directly into the camera. How many takes was that to get Carlos to spill the beans?
Spill the beans. Spill the beans shot was, I think, it might have been. It was very near the first shot of the movie.
Yeah, but it was take one.
Yeah, it was definitely take one, and there's photos of us wearing trash bags and stuff behind camera, not knowing what was going to happen, and when it hit the ground, I mean, it just drenched the camera. It was dripping off the lens like everywhere. It was on the ceiling. It was just perfect. So I was like, okay, let's move on.
And that was his first movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was his first movie, right? He was worked with Capone.
No. I just met him through Jimmy.
Oh, never mind about that. He reminds us of a bouncer we know, though, named Brando. So.
Yeah.
That's all I
They're
got.
friends.
That's all I got.
And before we hand it over to the Crowlers, I was just wondering, in the context of other films that you've done, I mean, how much is too much? How far is too far? I mean, just to set the scene, Joey, who played Steve in the movie previously in the films they've done, he's had him dress in drag, give another guy a blowjob. Brett here sings all his lines in Privateer, which is playing Monday at 4 o'clock, so please come and check that out, if only for his singing. This is fantastic. Yeah, Brett, what was kind of the weirdest piece of direction that Brian gave you on this movie, or the weirdest kind of eccentricity to the character?
On this one? Well, I guess, Brian and I have been working together, and in the beginning we were acting together, and then Brian stepped up and started directing, and then I started producing with him, and So it's just sort of, things sort of changed when he started directing me. And then I guess on this film, you know, we would do a scene, and then I would come over and say, Ryan, was that okay? And he'd go, shut up, get out of my face. Yeah. It's okay. And I go, was that scene all right? Brett, shut up. So, that's how I knew that I was doing all right. Yeah, I don't know. So, well, we trust each other at this point. Yeah.
I don't think I gave very much direction while we were on the set. We did. I rehearsed a lot with Brett and Cece and Joey in the couple of weeks before. I didn't have any time to rehearse for myself because we were just trying to figure everything out, put it together. And I actually had pneumonia on the first day of shooting. And that first scene where I'm firing Max Hoffman in the hallway there, I'm deathly ill in that moment. But that is where I found my character was in being a powerless power monger. So, yeah, I mean, we did 1 or 2 takes per setup. That's kind of how this movie was made. There was just a little bit of time, and we were just running. And I just figured I'd just tell everybody just to have as much fun as they could, and hopefully the best jokes would land, and we'd cut the weak ones.
They say that directors are sometimes dictators, and you actually got to play the great dictator on this one, which is kind of cool. So we're going to take some questions now, but we were talking about something the other day. I'd be interested to hear from the audience on this, is that I was saying I wasn't sure whether Victor was really as nice as he says he is, or actually he's kind of a conniving, skeeving prick, just trying to steal Steve's girl and really stick it to him. So show of hands for a nice guy.
1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay.
And prick.
Oh, ouch. Okay.
Yeah, I love this character Brett plays. Like, I've said this like 1,000 times, but you character watch him and like the guy smells like patchouli. And like he's the dude that's so sweet, he's saccharine. I don't know. That's all I got to say.
Does anyone have any questions?
Why, in what scenario you think he's being a prick?
In what scenario he's being a prick?
As in if he's not a nice guy, what's his kind of reason for being a prick? What's he trying to get out of it?
Are you asking me?
If you won't believe it, or if you just believe, what's the reason behind it?
Well, for me, I actually think he's the nicest guy in the world. I don't think he's a prick at all. That's how I always saw it. I mean, that's up for you guys to decide, I guess.
Well, that scene with you and Capone, where he's like wants to knock you out, and he's like, "You're dating my girl, it's my girlfriend," and you turn that whole thing around on him and get him to apologize to you. Like, that's a big move, man. I mean, it's sweet, but like to get the guy whose girlfriend you're banging to apologize to you, that's like Dick Cheney shooting a guy in the face and getting him to apologize. All right. Sorry.
Well, I guess my hope was that these questions would be asked after the movie, just because I mean, it's very, I worked in 12 restaurants over the years throughout my crazy career, and so you meet these guys that come through town, and every now and then you meet a guy who's like, he saved an orphanage down in somewhere, and he just volunteered to do all this. Next thing you know, he's dating the girl you liked, and you're like, what the hell? This guy just came into town and took the soul, So I don't know. I mean, it was all written in there in the script by Joey and Brian, and it was just a lot of fun to try to walk down the line and give little hints that he was a scumbag, and maybe he was just trying to get all the Boyle's money, or maybe he was actually a nice guy, and maybe he was a little controlling, but maybe he was sweet, and so it was just fun to create Victor Smiles. What a name, Robert?
No, I think he's a nice guy for the most part, but there's a few little hints that maybe he's not totally nice. Like after the scene with Joey where he gets Joey to apologize. Is everything cool? And then Joey's like, yeah, and then he just takes off.
Yeah.
So it's like he has a little bit of an agenda at times, I think.
Yep.
So maybe he's not 100% nice.
Robert shot and edited the film and
With
the
Brian.
film last night, and with Brian. Yeah, that's right. But okay.
Any other questions? This one right
Yes,
here.
when you gentlemen were eating the hot chili peppers, were they real?
There was some real hot peppers definitely being eaten in the scene. Joey and Brett on take one definitely wanted to prove their manhood, and then we kind of had to wait like maybe 30 minutes so their eyes and it would stop water and their skin would be not stop being so red.
And what about Harry Dean, all three? Would they really eat all three?
That was a camera trick. He didn't eat one of them. No, I couldn't let him do it.
Yes, right here.
Really, really funny movie, you guys. I haven't
Thanks.
seen your previous ones, but seeing this really makes me want to see them now. You say that it took 7 days, I guess, to write the first script
Mhm.
for this woman. It doesn't seem very rushed. I mean, how rushed were you from script to screen? How many shoot days did you have as well?
Let's
And
see.
brilliant cinematography, by the way.
I think we wrote it in like less than a month. But from the time we wrote it, we were like shooting maybe even 3 weeks or something like that. We were into production. And the crazy thing is Joey's, the restaurant that he worked at that said we could shoot for free, well, we learned like a couple days before, 2 days before we were starting to shoot that it was no go. We couldn't shoot there. So we had to find an entire new location. And then I think we shot for 14, 15 days, was it? Yeah, right in there, which was kind of, it was the longest time I've had to shoot a film.
The 3 weeks of prep, you didn't even have prep, really.
Right, no, not
Okay,
too
wow,
much.
that's
Just, yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
Probably got time for a couple more. Do I see one there at the back?
No, that's a bald head.
That's a bald head, it's shiny.
Thank you guys so much
Yeah,
for
thanks
coming,
for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
staying late.
And don't forget that Brian's other film, Privateer, is playing Monday at 4 o'clock.
4 p.m.
And 9 Full Moons is playing, right? Tomorrow.
Yeah,
At 12:45.
9 Full Moons, which is my pick of the whole festival, I would say.
Wow.
This man right here is incredible in the movie. It's a dramatic part, very, very different. Come and check that out. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.